Welcome everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come in here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. Dylan, chaotic race at Texas on the big track on Sunday. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first off, Kyle Larson made a surprise appearance to the Little Texas Motor Speedway for Seabell's Micromania on Friday night and Saturday night. We didn't really know. Last time we talked last Wednesday, we didn't know Kyle was going to be racing this. We kind of thought that it was just going to be an Owen deal. Owen was on the preliminary entry list earlier on in the week, driving that number 81 CB Industries Junior Sprint. By the way, Owen did a great job on the first night. Actually, almost beat Brexton Bush. Kind of was one of my more exciting moments of the week as far as racing. When I thought Owen was really going to pull it off, Brexton did get him back at the end of that race. But one of the first times Owen's been up there battling for the lead, and he looked really good this week, Dylan.
Yeah, definitely looked really good. That was his first junior sprint race, so congrats to him for taking a step up. And I mean, he doesn't race a lot, so it's exciting to see. His on track action. Going against Brexton Bush, he's constantly racing. He has that on track experience, so it was kind of exciting to see him up there battling with a guy that's a regular like Brexton.
Absolutely. So, like I said, Kyle, it's kind of surprising that he ended up running this thing. I kind of got a little tip on Friday afternoon. Somebody messaged us on Facebook. I can't remember the exact name, but thank you for the message. Somebody actually said that their cousin was there at the track pitting next to Kyle Larson. They kind of gave it away that Kyle was going to be running on Friday night. Obviously, we made sure and confirmed that, posted that on Friday, and Kyle was back in that number 95 Radney car that he won at Linda's Speedway earlier in the year, I think back in July, and Kyle was super fast both nights. The first night, he ended up finishing fourth on the night. It was very tough to pass. That was kind of the only night, Dylan, that the track wasn't in tip-top shape. It was kind of locked down, single lane around there. But that fourth place finish on the preliminary night locked Kyle into the main event on Saturday night, starting in eighth. And it was not an easy race, Dylan, for Kyle to come up through there. He did eventually pick up the win, but it kind of if you watch the beginning of the first two or three laps of the race, there was probably it seemed like 20 restarts in the first three laps for guys running into each other, and Kyle Larson was one of those guys that got spun out and had to go to the rear.
Yeah, pretty insane. Not too surprised. I mean, watching that race, those guys are just completely reckless out there in the micro. I mean, they'll just drive right through you. I mean, it's just dirty racing. It's like they just kind of just went on the street and had some guys be like, "You want to come drive my micro for me?" It was just wasn't clean whatsoever. But yeah, just insane. Spun on the first lap, came back, got the win. Like you said in the preliminary night, track wasn't the best, so I heard the track crew definitely tried their best to get it, situated going into the final night. So it was definitely a better product of racing the final night.
Definitely the first couple laps were chaotic. It kind of seemed like they were, going bumper cars out there more so than racing. But Kyle kept it clean most of the way. Like he just had to go to the back and in typical Larson fashion, just picked them off one by one. Had some restarts along the way, and Kyle got a little bit of help when he got up to second. There was about a 3.5 second gap, nearly a straightaway lead for the leader at that time, and a caution came out, bunched him back up, and on the restart, Kyle Larson took the lead from the outside, and didn't really look back from that point. So just a all in all good trip to Texas for Kyle on the dirt side of things. Obviously, we had hoped for a little bit better on the NASCAR side of things as well, but that was the seventh micro race of the season for Kyle Larson in 2022, picking up his fourth win in the micro. He has two at Millbridge now, one at Linda's, and this one at Texas as well. So really strong this year in the micro. Dylan, on the other side of things, though, on the Cup side. Um, Definitely another disappointing race. I feel like we talk about this every single week, and it's like I don't want to be upset about a ninth place finish. I feel like it was all in all a pretty good points day. We'll talk about the point situation in a little bit, but man, just disappointing for this team.
Yeah, I think the big thing that makes it more frustrating, where we finished is knowing that we're going into Talladega next week, and it's anything goes there, and it would have just been huge if he could have locked up the win at Texas. I mean, he was I mean, I would say the fastest car most of the day. I mean, it's disappointing, week after week, these bad pits just kind of ruining his chance. He was a little slow in the restart, but I mean, like Kyle said, he can't keep making his way through the entire field on every yellow every time he pits. It's tough to make that ground back. It's not the Gen 6 car where, you know, bad pit, he just goes back and he's got this super fast car that can just fly through the field just with ease. So it's definitely challenging, and something needs to change there with the pit crew. I mean, it's getting kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and like it's still just like you said, just as hard to pass as it's been all season in the next gen car. I think just the talent that Kyle Larson is the reason why he was able to pass nearly 100 cars in that race on Sunday and work his way back up. I mean, he was so fast in that first stage, Dylan. He obviously picked up the stage win, that important playoff point that's obviously going to carry over to the next round if Kyle keeps it nice and clean the next two races. But just very disappointing. I mean, it's just the first time they went back and right after the stage one caution and Kyle Larson pitted the right front. They weren't sure if it was tight. They had to bring the car back and make sure it was tight. No word if it was actually tight or loose on that stop. I don't know if you've heard anything about that or not, Dylan, but I wonder if it's just like a little bit, Cliff Daniels being paranoid in these situations sometimes because he knows that if that wheel comes off, it's him getting suspended and not Kyle. So I almost wonder, is it like, maybe it was tight and he's just like trying to be 100% sure? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. One thing I've noticed, it seems to, for the most part, be the right front that they're kind of having
Yeah.
trouble with. Like you said, Cliff, he just wants to be sure. I mean, they dealt with that Sonoma out 4 races. We look at Blaney. I mean, we're round of 12 now, and he's going into the next few races without the crew chief and his normal pit guy. So it's definitely not a situation you want to get into in the playoffs, especially. Yeah, the last pit for the 4 tires and fuel. Went in fourth, came out 22nd. Just it's tough, man. Back to back weeks, the last pit of the race. It's pretty tough. I mean, it's never ending.
Yeah, I was just kind of sitting there watching the race, and I was expecting, once Larson was able to get back all the track position he had lost from the first error on pit road and work his way into the top five. That final pit stop with roughly, I think, 50 or 60 laps to go. I just had a bad feeling about it when he brought the car down pit road. I was like, it's just a clean stop. We don't got to gain positions, but I don't want to lose a bunch, and that's exactly what happened. He went from being in the top five to having to restart 22nd on that last cycle of pit stops. I thought it was pretty much over from that point, and you know, with what Larson had done passing cars early in the race, I figured he would kind of get close to the front. He ended up getting up to sixth late in the race there before he kind of slipped up with like 10 to go and ended up finishing ninth. I think he was just pushing as hard as he could there just to get every position. But yeah, unacceptable. I think from the pit crew the past couple weeks. We're not used to seeing this. Last year and the majority of this season they've been pretty good, but it's just when it comes down to it, it's playoffs now. It's round of 12, and we all know what race is next with Talladega. That Texas race was huge, and I think Kyle Larson had the car to beat. He seemed like he was the fastest guy all day. Nobody was passing cars like he was, and just a shame.
Yeah, definitely. And while we're still on the topic of Texas, I kind of want to ask your opinion on it. Every week there seems to be some drama. This week, got Byron and Hamlin drama. Hamlin pushed Byron up into the backstretch wall there. So Byron later retaliated. He ended up spinning Hamlin out, which he claims wasn't his intention, but this happened under yellow, so Hamlin spun out. They sent him back to 20th because he didn't maintain his speed. And then another thing, not a lot of people have seen, but Ty Gibbs and Ty Dillon actually had a little situation on pit road. Ty Dillon unintentionally hit Gibbs while exiting his pit stall, and Gibbs kind of shoved Dillon pretty hard to the left, and he almost it kind of guided him towards the NASCAR official. So I just wanted to ask you, you know, what do you think NASCAR is going to do? They're kind of being kind of lenient, it seems, with their penalties and as far as handing them out. So what's your take?
Well, I do think on the Byron and Hamlin situation, obviously, I don't think Hamlin was Yeah, I don't think it was blatantly like putting Byron in the wall situation there. I think it was obviously not the cleanest move, but with Byron under the caution hitting Hamlin, obviously I'm not a Hamlin fan at all, but I think that's unacceptable. I think that spinning a guy out under the yellow, there should be a penalty for that. I don't think that that should happen. Even if you were ran up into the wall, it's not like he ended Byron's day. Byron kept on going and obviously lost some positions there, but I think that NASCAR is going to take a look at this situation between them. I think there is going to be disciplinary action taken on William Byron for that incident, and I think that Denny Hamlin should just be glad, like they said on TV, he should be glad that he didn't take action back because I think that is what would have shined over everything is if he wrecked Byron again under caution. I think NASCAR was kind of focused more on the caution at hand. I can't remember who it was that was the reason for the caution when it came out there, but I think I watched a video earlier today about NASCAR and their explanation about it, and they kind of said they weren't really focused at all on the Hamlin Byron thing at the moment when it happened. They really only were looking at the caution and what was going on with the reason for caution. So I do think there's going to be action taken, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be major or affect William Byron's playoff status.
Yeah, a lot of people are calling for, docking playoff points, or I've even seen people say that if he's not literally suspended for Talladega, that it's wrong, which is just, it's insane. But yeah, a lot of people were upset about it. Like you said, NASCAR, they said they weren't really paying attention to it. A lot of people got mad about that. Especially with like, the in-car footage, it looks way worse with in-car footage, but
Yeah.
yeah, just something needs to be done there. It was unnecessary for sure.
Yeah, I just think it'll be probably like a small fine or something like that, and these
Yeah.
guys will keep on going. And obviously, they're both still racing for a championship at this point, so I don't think this is going to really carry over into Talladega. I think, of all the tracks where you could retaliate or get somebody back, I think Talladega is the place where you absolutely don't want to do that. And these guys have enough respect for each other that they're not going to do anything silly next week. But obviously, like you talked about, drama, the tempers were flaring at Texas, but also the drama again with the car and the tire situation. It felt like almost every 30 laps, Dylan, uh, there was a tire issue. That was the majority of the reason for all the cautions. I knew the drivers had to be nervous about it. I didn't really hear Kyle Larson's take on the tire situation after the race, but I'm getting tired of hearing these announcers. I think the announcers need to stop backing it up all the time. NASCAR, their NASCAR and Goodyear, their phony excuses for the tire issues. They always want to just blame it on the teams and the setup on the cars. I don't remember a season like this where we've seen so many races where there have been tire issues and Goodyear and NASCAR take zero responsibility for any of it. They just pass it off to the teams and say, "Look, the teams don't know what they're doing. They're too aggressive on their setup, and that's the reason for the tires blowing out." There's zero excuse, Dylan, why teams shouldn't be able to make adjustments on these cars and be aggressive with adjustments. 30 lap runs on tires just doesn't make any sense. Not even getting half of the way through a fuel run.
Yeah, I mean, three different drivers at Texas, they crashed out of the lead from blown tires. I mean, Bell had that tire failure early on. I think it was close to around lap 80, and then he had it again later in the race, I think around 140, and that ended his day. He's been having a huge run in the playoffs, so
Yeah.
that was very detrimental to him. Bowman's car, he was destroyed after he went in the wall from the tire thing. Elliott, he hit the wall. Car completely caught on fire. So that's three playoff drivers right there that got the bad end of the deal. Bell and Elliott, two big guys that are favorites at this point in for the playoffs. But I mean, that not only the tires. I mean, we're questioning the safety at this point
Right.
with the Gen 7 car. I mean, we saw that kind of that scary Cody Ware crash that sent him into the wall. He kind of lost control and eventually made his way into that pit wall. But I got some stats here for Texas. So that Texas race, the average speed was 114 miles per hour. Now that speed shattered the previous low speed of 125 mile per hour, which was set in the inaugural race in 1997. Now we have the lowest speed since 1997 in a Gen 7 car. So how are we regressing? We had 16 cautions, which was also a cup record at Texas. So it just seems like the safety is regressing. I mean, a lot of people go back every time we go to Texas. McDowell in the 2008 qualifying, which was, I think that was Gen 5. He got loose, slammed into the wall, goes on his roof, spun a few times. He flipped down the banking like 8 times. He was on fire, and he just walked out of the car like he just banged the wall. But we have guys like Cody Ware. I mean, contact with the wall. They're like I said, they're not going super fast. It's the lowest speeds we've seen in a while, and I mean, he had to be stretchered out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the safety's a concern. Just all around, the Gen 7 just hasn't been very, very good to us this season.
Yeah, and obviously we hope that Cody Ware is okay. I think he was checked and released from the infield care center after the race, or during the race. Haven't really heard anything about his status for next week's race, but um, yeah, just scary stuff when you see a crash like that where it doesn't. We've kind of grown accustomed to in this current era of NASCAR over the past 10, 15 years, seeing some very crazy crashes and guys just walking away unscathed, not even shook up from some of these wrecks in the previous, Gen 6 car. And now with this car, it's like every little hit that these guys take into the wall. I don't know why the car can't absorb the impact that the previous generation of car could, but Kevin Harvick's talked about it multiple times. Something does need to be done in terms of safety for these drivers because we see minor, I would say in this era of NASCAR, a minor incident what happened to Cody Ware, obviously a hard hit, but compared to stuff we've seen over the past 10 years, like, the Ryan Newman crash, for instance, and, there was a bad one for Austin Dillon at Daytona too, stuff like that. When we see, hopefully, we never see something like that again, but, it's racing and stuff happens, but when it does happen, this car doesn't give me, faith that drivers are going to be able to walk away so easily from these types of incidents, and it definitely is something that I think NASCAR needs to take immediate action about.
No, definitely. And I've noticed when these cars take a hit, obviously from the outside view, I mean, the car doesn't have a ton of damage. But like you said, it's just not absorbing that. Those huge wrecks we saw with Gen 6, Gen 5, and so on, the car was absolutely destroyed. I mean, just talking about Larson, what was it, his Clorox car, his first race at Daytona or whatever? I mean, the engine was completely out. The car was just, only the cockpit was left. That was it. And he just walked out fine. So, the car can definitely take a beating, but it can't absorb. So, and then another thing, a lot of drivers, after these wrecks, if they're not shaken up immediately, they've made reports of having like bad headaches later
Yeah.
on in the week, just kind of shock from that impact. So, I don't know what needs to be done. Like I said last week, a lot of people are trying to pull for the bringing the Xfinity cars, making that the Gen 8. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if we'll hear something from NASCAR on this, maybe after the season, but definitely for the, safety side of things, I hope that something is done or, you know, just something in general. I mean, it's just it's not clearly as safe as what the previous car was. And if you think back to before the car even hit the track for official racing at the Busch Clash, this was one of the major concerns over the whole entire year prior of testing. I don't know if a lot of people kept up with the testing of the next gen car, but all of the drivers said the same thing, that the car wasn't safe and that they didn't feel comfortable with it. And now we're kind of starting to see some of the effects of that as we get into the season with Kurt Busch and then Cody Ware being shaken up this past weekend. So Dylan, looking ahead to Talladega this weekend, obviously not a track that has been great for Kyle Larson, but earlier in the year in the spring race, Kyle did pick up a top five finish for the first time in his career. What are your expectations for this race? And for me, I guess my question for you is, do you think that is kind of a good strategy for Kyle and some of these other teams to maybe hang out in the back of the pack, play it safe earlier in the race, and then be there in the end? I know Kyle Larson, talked about this in an interview earlier in the weekend, saying that he didn't really think that a lot of teams would go for this type of strategy, as stage points are pretty valuable, and there's two opportunities to get a playoff point in the middle of the race.
Yeah, well, going into it, my expectation is to actually finish the race. He has 5 DNFs there. You mentioned he had his career best fourth place finish in the spring race. Started fifth, finished fourth. But yeah, as far as the strategy goes, I think it was Logano in the Coke Zero race at Daytona when the entire field was out of the race. He mentioned that he wonders why, a lot of teams don't follow that strategy. You just kind of hang in the back, and you're almost guaranteed to finish the race because that's kind of the end goal at Talladega and Daytona. Just finish the race. The car comes home clean. It's considered a win, but Logano said that he's not with that strategy per se. He's a racer. He wants to race. He wants to try to win, get up there in the front. So I don't know if it's a good strategy or not. I mean, it's proven to work. We saw it at Daytona. The guys in the back got top 10 finishes, but I don't know. The playoffs. At this point in the playoffs, the points are pretty close. We have Logano at one, Chastain two. He won the Talladega spring race early in the year. Byron, Larson, and Blaney, they're all pretty close in points. So who knows if they'll follow a different strategy this time around because it's playoffs. We'll see.
Right, and kind of speaking of Joey Logano, I think at plus 30 above the cut line, he's kind of the only guy of anyone in the playoffs right now that can kind of go into this race. And if he does have some sort of problem, he's not going to be going into Charlotte Roval in a must-win situation. Obviously, he'll have to get a good finish, but I think he's kind of the only guy that can have trouble this week. I mean, Kyle Larson, where he currently sits at 16 above the cut line, that can go really quick. I mean, 16 points is virtually nothing. Obviously, every point is very important, but 16 points if you finish dead last, you're probably going to be looking at sitting 20 or 30 points below the cut line heading into the Roval.
Yeah, that's what we saw last year. I mean, he kind of had to win the Roval, which is crazy, given his regular season performance. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to finish this race. Don't want to be put in a must-win situation because I don't need that stress in my life. So let's hope the cars bring home clean. I mean, hoping for at least a top 10 finish here. Just bring the car home.
Absolutely. So, speaking about some less stressful things other than Talladega this weekend, we do have some dirt racing on the schedule for Kyle Larson this week. Jam-packed week, potentially very packed. We'll talk about that in a second. But the two confirmed races on the schedule for Kyle Larson this week is the Wayne County Speedway for the High Limit Sprint Car Series, the Sheldon Hodden Shields Buckeye Bash or Brawl, whatever it is, on Tuesday night. That's on Flow Racing. Kyle Larson will be there running. I know he is itching to win that one after not winning his first series race at Putnamville earlier last month, but gonna be a good one there on Tuesday night, Dylan.
Yeah, definitely excited to see it. We haven't been seeing a lot of dirt car racing lately. Sprint, especially late model. We have the late model at Atomic. You didn't mention it yet, but that's coming up with the Flow Racing Night in America. That's exciting to see. Been itching to see him back in that late model. It's been a while.
2 months.
Not sure. Yeah, 2 months. I was gonna ask
Yeah,
what's the last
July
time, but
30th Prairie Dirt Classic was the last time that Kyle Larson was in the Rumley Six. It seems like yesterday with everything that's been going on, but yeah, it's been 2 months almost since we've seen Kyle in the six car.
yeah, hopefully it's a good one at Atomic. Predator Classic that was still marked as one of my favorite races of the year. So hopefully we get a good result like that going into it. Yeah,
Yeah, Atomic's definitely going to be a good one on Wednesday night. Last time I think Kyle Larson was there. He actually won in the sprint car with the fast sprints there last year. I think that might have been like in May or June. But a good track for Kyle, and we're definitely looking forward to those two races this weekend. As far as other stuff on the schedule, a lot of people have been asking again about the National Open on Friday night and Saturday night. Still no word as to if Kyle will be there or will not be there. Like we said last week, he was there last year. I was there. If Kyle is going to be there Friday night and Saturday night, I'll be there at the track covering it all. But as for right now, weather not looking too hot for the weekend. That hurricane coming up the eastern coast is not looking too sharp for Saturday night at Williams Grove. It's supposed to be up in the Maryland, Pennsylvania area by Saturday.
yeah. Hopefully weather does its part and allows the racing to take place. Like I said, I'm in Florida. The hurricane's apparently not going to be too good for me. Supposed to get like 15 inches of rain, I think here. So that's why we're doing an early podcast for everyone. In case you're wondering, we usually drop it on Wednesday, but praying the power doesn't go out for me and I can see these races happen. Yeah, it's tough, but kind of backtracking a minute before we kind of wrap this up. Kind of back to Texas. Larson spoke about Texas and the repave or the current state of the track. he said that he would like them to demolish it and then start over from scratch. Just want to hear your thoughts on it. I think most of the NASCAR fan base universally, agrees that they kind of Texas is a bad track. Larson said he wanted a 3/4 mile Bristol style track, pavement, progressive banking. Yeah, what's your thoughts on it? What kind of track would you like to see?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of, stuck in a tough place about Texas. As myself being a huge Jimmy Johnson fan as well. Um, you know, I am I do like Texas in the fact that that was a great track for Jimmy over the years. The Victory Lane is named after Jimmy Johnson, but obviously that was on a different configuration of the Texas track. I think that once the track was reconfigured I don't know how many years ago it was reconfigured, but when it was reconfigured to turns 1 and 2 being different from 3 and 4, it obviously hasn't produced the quality of racing that we were used to with Texas, and I think guys like Kyle are just like they just want to see something different there. And obviously, I think Kyle was being more sarcastic than anything in the interview on Saturday before practice and qualifying when he said that, but I definitely think that some of the drivers want to see something different than the current state of Texas. I don't think that that was anything that really contributed to any of the tire issues that we saw on Sunday, but the racing wasn't great, especially once the sun went down and the track temps cooled down. It was very hard to pass, but that's been a common theme all year with the next gen car. So for me, it's kind of like, is it the track or is it the car? I mean, it seems like it's a combination of of both things.
Yeah, I mean, other drivers they agree with Larson. They don't like the track too much, but it kind of raises questions because if NASCAR were to repave Texas, it's not completely unlikely that we would, end up seeing another Atlanta where
Mm.
a track is repaved into a super speedway, which drivers don't want. They don't like that new repave at Atlanta. I don't like it. Short track. I don't even know if that would be, in the realm of possibility or not. Auto Club is another track. It was set to be a short track if the plans are finalized, which still kind of upset about that. I think that was a good track. We saw a good race this year with it and Kyle's first one of the year, but only time will tell as far as Auto Club's concerned. But yeah, just to overall, just not a fan of Texas. I agree with Larson 100%. Needs to be just demolished, bring the bulldozers out, just end it.
Yeah, I think at most what we'll see is probably a change to the banking of the track. I think the shape of the track is probably, going to remain the same. But who knows? Maybe Kyle Larson has a big influence on what happens there at Texas. I don't think that's how it works, but maybe he'll get the pot stirred up, and we'll see some major changes at Texas. So I think that's all we had for today's show, Dylan. Like we said, lots of racing on tap for Kyle Larson this weekend. Stay up to date with all things Kyle Larson on our social media. We'll post as soon as we hear anything about Williams Grove and the National Open. Our fingers are crossed that Kyle Larson is going to be there, and obviously hoping the weather stays out of the area so we can get some good sprint car racing in up there at the Williams Grove Speedway. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the show. We'll be back again next week to recap all the racing from Talladega, as well as Atomic, Wayne County, and potentially Williams Grove. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and enjoy the on-track action. We will see you in the next episode.